Wow. It is great to be here at Champion Center. Please be seated.
Thank you guys for having us. We're really excited to be here.
Yeah, I like the name of this conference, the MESH Conference. M-E-S-H, right? Is that right? MESH. And sometimes, Lisa, people ask us about relationships or whatever, and it's challenging, no doubt. I think we would all agree. We're all married here. It is a tall order to mesh. And one of the problems is the me in mesh.
That's the biggest problem.
And there's another problem too, I found out in the word. It's the sh in mesh.
Okay, just to let you know, I am on this stage not to really impart wisdom, but to keep him
That's
calm.
not true.
That's why I'm here.
You know, one of the big things out there these days, because we're going to talk about that, Lexus to our right, to your left. One of the big things these days out there has to do with tires and wheels. And if you know anything about cars, you know that you can spend squillions of dollars. That's right, squillions on tires and wheels. If you look up, you know, the Urban Dictionary definition of that, you know, they call them dubs. You hear people say, we're rolling on dubs, you know, 22s, 24s. You hear all that.
How many of you have ever heard that term dubs before?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, do you guys read the Urban Dictionary? Do you guys like look at the Urban Dictionary?
Yeah, and there's different definitions of dubs, but anyway, that's, you know, we're all rolling on dubs, right? We got cars, we got four tires and some sort of a wheel and a rim, and we're rolling on that. Also, the Urban Dictionary says this, and this is kind of a scary thing. It says marriage is the #1 cause of divorce.
That's hopeful.
Yeah, very, very hopeful.
That brings joy and enlightenment and promise.
Yeah, and I just read the recent research on marriage, and it's really troubling. 50% of all first-time marriages end up as relational wreckage. 67% of all second-time marriages don't make it. And 74% of all third-time marriages, Lisa, end up in the junkyard. So what I believe, and what we're going to talk about today is we need to really do some work. We need to do work about marriage, because marriage, I believe, can be the greatest thing. However, you've got to be willing to do some of the hardest stuff, which is W-O-R-K, to take your marriage to the next level and really understand what mesh is all about.
One of the things I want us to think about as we begin this work process is our thought process. Rarely do we think of marriage in the terms that God sees marriage.
That's right.
We think of marriage as, you know, something that comes after you've dated and found out that you're in love with that person, and you have this chemistry between yourself and this person, and maybe you date for a while, and then you think about marriage and you become engaged, and then it's all about the wedding runner, and all this thought is put into that ceremony. I mean, we have a daughter who's 24, and you know she's does not have a date yet or a boyfriend yet. She's very beautiful. If there are any, you know, when the singles come back in, I may do a poll. I'm a little partial, but you know, I mean, even she in her singleness is looking at Brides Magazine, you know, just dreaming of that day, and all those plans are made for that special day. But do we really understand what that special day is all about? It's a covenant day. It's a day where God is brought to the forefront of the relationship. And so are we thinking deeply about this marriage covenant? It's not about just a white picket fence in a home in a neighborhood where two people are married and have some kids. That's the shallow side of marriage. So what we want to unpack tonight is how God wants us to view marriage, and then how we can make it exist and flow in His design.
Yeah, and if you think about marriage, you know, this wedding runner that Lisa just talked about, really it's what you do and don't do before you say I do. So what you do and don't do before you say I do affects what you do and don't do after you say, I do. One of the biggest mistakes that we made, Lisa and I, in our dating relationship and also for the first 20 years of our marriage, we failed to take our car, our Lexus, this relationship, because God wants all of us to have Lexus love, right? A Lexus relationship. We failed to take our marriage into a certified mechanic's influence and expertise. In other words, I'm talking about counseling. I'm talking about someone who comes from a biblical anchor who can talk about marriage, who can talk to you openly and honestly and objectively about what you bring to the table, what your spouse brings to the table, because we work on everything else in life. We'll work on our golf game. We'll work on our tennis serve. We'll talk to an expert in finances to plan our portfolios and all that. But when it comes to the most important relationship, the only relationship that's analogous to God's relationship with his people, marriage, it's like we just don't even do the work, Lisa, that we need to do, that I believe God wants us to do to hit on all cylinders, to really pull some incredible RPMs.
And you know, Ed just said something that probably just went shoo right across here. He said that marriage is the only relationship that is analogous with the relationship that God has with his children. So when I talked about, and as we talk about the depth of marriage, we're talking about a relationship on earth that reflects God's relationship with us. That is deep. That is so much deeper than what most of us would ever think marriage is all about. Ed and I didn't have a clue about that. We both grew up in Christian homes. I mean, Ed's dad's a pastor. I grew up, my dad was a deacon in the church.
Yeah.
We were clueless about the depth of marriage and how our marriage is to reflect God's relationship with his people. Now that puts an unbelievable amount of responsibility on Christ followers who are married.
And that's why we wrote this book, The Marriage Mirror, because a marriage should reflect Christ. But here's the deal. In marriage, when I look into Lisa's eyes, I see reflected back who I am, the good, the bad, and the ugly. When Lisa looks into my eyes, she sees reflected back the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's part of marriage. We should see, though, Christ reflected back in every aspect of our lives. We don't have a perfect marriage. No one here does. That, though, is the goal. That's putting the ball through the net. That's taking the puck and putting it in the net. That's scoring the touchdown, to use another sports metaphor.
But we want to strive to take it to that place where not only are we pleasing God by our marriages, but we're also showing the world what a relationship with Christ is all about.
We want the relationship to roll on some serious dubs. And we're going to talk about, see, you thought we just said that. We're going to talk about the foundation
I can't bring myself to just say dubs.
We're going to talk, though, Lisa, about a foundation of a great marriage. Because if we could hear the sound that God wants us to reflect in our marriage, it would sound like this. Everyone close your eyes. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
God wants us to fly. He wants us to cruise, Lisa, in this only relationship that's analogous to God's relationship with his people. He wants our car, our Lexus, because all of us are Lexuses, right? To be so shiny that when you look at it, you see reflected Jesus Christ. So I want us to talk about these four wheels, these four tires, because these four tires give stability, they give speed, they give direction. And again, if we could see the direction and the speed and the destiny that God has for every marriage here, every marriage here, every marriage here, every marriage here, we wouldn't believe it. What's the first tire? What's the first wheel?
Well, it's the foundation. Ed, before we get to the first one, I just got a new used car. I love this new used car because it has this thing on
Pre-owned.
the front. Pre-owned, that's right. Pre-owned, certified at that.
Yeah.
But it tells you things about your tires. And if it gets really cold, this little exclamation point comes up,
Yep.
and it'll let you know that either your tires are out of balance, your dubs are out of balance,
Yeah.
or whatever. Does that work?
Yeah, that sounds good.
And so we want to make sure that these 4 foundations of our marriages are all in balance, that they're all working together, that they're all running smoothly. The first one is the big C, commitment.
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 Because we'd rather quit than commit. We'd rather throw in the towel than stay in the game. We'd rather bail out than blast through. We'd rather leave than last. And most of us in our world today, we have that vow-forgetting, excuse-making, work-faking mentality that sort of does the pushback whenever we even consider the concept of commitment.
And what our culture says is to base everything in your life upon feelings. How do you feel today? I'm just not feeling it.
Feelings. Nothing more than feelings. The Bible, you know, the Bible rarely talks about feelings. The other day I was thinking, okay, surely the Bible talks a lot about feelings. Now I understand God has feelings too. I understand that. God
And he's
has made
concerned
us,
about our emotions.
He's concerned about our emotions.
He's concerned about our
We're not
emotions.
saying that. But the Bible concentrates on commitment. It concentrates on covenant because, Lisa, you don't feel your way into a commitment. No. You commit, and then the feelings will follow.
Absolutely. And you know, the interesting thing about commitment is our culture today not only says base everything on feelings, but it's all about, you know, quick response, how you're satisfied quickly.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting
Instant gratification.
instant gratification, and so if you're not getting that, then your feelings come into play, and then your commitment falls off. And so we're living in a commitment-phobic society.
Yeah, because every time you watch something on television or you read something, well, I just don't feel it anymore. I just don't feel like he loves me. I just don't feel the same way I used to. And so we trade in for a newer model, and
the statistics will show,
Yeah,
as Ed
and
just
the- and
said,
the stats keep
that
going.
doesn't work because you know what? Your feelings keep getting fickled. And you can't base it on your feelings. It could be that you had bad sushi and your feelings have just, you know,
Yeah.
you're feeling a little pain.
Lisa, I think it's important that we define commitment. Marital commitment is pledging yourself to a position no matter what the cost. I remember years ago I was running a marathon. I've only run one in my life, and everyone told me when I hit about the 20-mile marker, my body would shut down and I would hit the wall. Well, thankfully, someone in the crowd knew I was going to hit the wall, and they prearranged to be there, and they were sort of coaching me when my body was breaking down. And this guy encouraged me. He helped me. Literally, he helped me crash through a quitting point. Crashing through quitting points is what commitment is all about. Lisa and I have had quitting points in our marriage. Mm-hmm. We've had times where we're like, okay, let's throw in the towel.
Oh,
it's
but
not worth it.
wait a minute. We're in ministry.
Yeah,
we're
you can't do
pastors.
that.
You know what? We're human beings.
Yes.
He is a self-centered sinner. I am a self-centered sinner. And when you put two self-centered sinners together, say that really fast, two or three times, you're going to have chaos, or multiple sinning.
You'd have a lot of self-centered sinning going on.
Yes, you will. And
Yeah.
so for 28 years now, 28 plus years, and we dated for 6 years. So this is like 35 years that, you know, we were just 4 years old when we met. No. But, you know, for these years, Ed and I have not been in love 24/7. We haven't. We've been in commitment 24/7.
That's good.
There's a big difference between that. Love is something that ebbs and flows, and sometimes you feel it, and other times you don't. But commitment is that cold, hard steel of your relationship that causes you to say, I'm pledging myself to this no matter what the cost. Not when the times are good, when the times are bad. You know, in our vows are so important. in sickness and in health. You know, the good times and the bad. But we seem to, I don't remember those vows. I'm not sure I didn't feel it then. It's about commitment. This is a covenant relationship. And I know in a crowd this size, we have people who are walking through or have walked through very painful relationships. Some that are healing now from those relationships, others who are like in the throes of it. God will give you the grace to sustain you. His grace is sufficient for you. I just urge you to seek wise counsel. That's why this is so important. That's why weekly corporate worship is so important, because you're coming under the authority of God's word in the body of Christ. It's why you should be reading and digesting the scripture each and every day on your own, or perhaps you need to walk into a counselor's office, a Christian counselor's office. And if your spouse won't go, you go. You go. Don't use the excuse, well, he just won't go or she just won't go. Go. Work on yourself. Let God work on you.
Because the Bible says, Lisa, there's a genius in the multiplicity of counselors. The writer of Proverbs says that.
And in Ecclesiastes, that two are better than one. That
exactly.
Just the Twitter point. That was awesome.
And Psalm 37, verses 5 and 6, those are some verses that you can really wrap your brain and your marriage around, because it says, commit your way to the Lord, trust also in him, and he will what?
Do this. And this is what he will do. He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, the justice of your cause like the noonday sun. It's like the brightest. It's the growing. From dawn to noon, it's like when the sun is just beaming and going forth. And that's what God promises to do in your life and in my life when we commit our ways to him.
You have to have the attraction to one another. The Bible talks about that. We have this desire for the opposite sex, and we're to use that desire in a God-given way. The problem occurs when we take that God-given desire and it goes haywire. We use the God-given desire in a God-forbidden way. All of our desires for the opposite sex, all of this connectivity, all of this stuff that God has given us has been written by him. This is the owner's manual for the car. This is it. And this is how it works. So the first one?
Commitment.
Commitment. Pledge yourself to a position no matter what the cost. This next one, Lisa.
It flows out of commitment,
yes.
And it has to be operating in your life if you're going to break through quitting points, and it's called reconciliation.
Oh, reconciliation.
Wow.
Or forgiveness, the real F word, either one.
That's right.
One time, speaking about reconciliation and forgiveness, one time I was filling my car up with gas, and I saw this large Doberman on a leash, and a guy was walking him. And the guy crossed in front of me, crossed right in front of the gas tanks, went inside this convenience store. Before he went into the convenience store, he tied the Doberman up to this park bench. Well, when the guy walked in, he was in the store for, I don't know, a minute or two. For some reason, the Doberman got startled. You could see the whites of his eyes. He made a mad dash toward the freeway, jerking the park bench from its supports, dragging it behind him, sparks flying everywhere. And I watched this dog. This is a true story. It was written up in the paper. I watched this dog run out into traffic, dragging this bench behind him. He had so much torque on it, he was smashing the bench in this car and that car. Finally, the owner heard the commotion, ran out, calmed the dog down, led the dog to safety, and untied the dog from the bench. I'll argue, Lisa, that we're more like that Doberman than we care to admit. When it comes to forgiveness, when it comes to reconciliation, a lot of us are like that Doberman. We're dragging a park bench behind us, and it's causing all this collateral damage. Maybe an ex-spouse is back there. Maybe your spouse is back there. Maybe your mommy is back there. Your daddy. Maybe someone who messed you around in the business world is back there. Maybe a coach. Maybe someone who abused you. So what do? what do? We have to listen to our master's voice. Who's our master? The Lord Jesus. He's calling you and me by name. He doesn't want us to live in a state of emergency or a state of all this damage. We need to look to Him, allow Him to unleash unforgiveness. What that means, Lisa, is once we walk down the wedding runner and once we understand who God is and who Christ is, we have this thing called the ministry of reconciliation, which means we have got to do this work in the marriage.
Now, Ephesians 4:32, and this is a verse that Ed's father read to Ed and I on our wedding day during the ceremony. And it's a verse that every married couple should deposit into their spirit and live out every day. It's Ephesians 4:32. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ has forgiven you. How can we hold back forgiveness for our spouse in light of what God has done for us through Christ? In fact, the scripture also says that when we will not forgive another person, that God will in turn not forgive us.
Yeah, what if Jesus
That's
treated
strong.
Yeah, what if Jesus treated you and me or us like that? Well, I'm just not gonna.
So we need to
we'd be in
unleash
trouble,
it.
man.
We need to unleash that unforgiveness and leash up to forgiveness. So
But
that
but Lisa, I don't feel like
See,
forgiving.
there you go again.
I don't
Feelings-
feel like it.
But in light of commitment,
That's right.
we
Yeah.
forgive. In light of the commitment, first of all, that we have to God, and you know what? Let's put it this way. God has committed Himself to us through Christ. In light of that commitment, feelings are aside. And that's hard.
Okay, Lisa, how about this question? Do you ever, or have you ever really felt like forgiving?
Not really.
Yeah, people say, well,
Do you
I'm
want me
not
to
going to
think about it for a
forgive until I feel it.
No.
That
No.
could be years.
And this is another thing. The Bible also says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. In other words, have short accounts. And there have been times where Ed and I have laid in bed at night, and I have been steaming, he has been steaming, as far as just anger toward one another. And we have to come to reconciliation, and perhaps we don't have it all solved, but we can agree to forgive and discuss it further at a later time. I mean, that's okay. But don't be angry when you put your head on that pillow and go to bed at night. Because that person that you are laying next to is a God-given person.
Alexis.
Alexis.
That's right.
Yes, a convertible at that.
Yes. Well, the next one, Lisa, is one that's pretty popular to talk about, yet it is crucial in marriage. It has two parts to it. Intimacy. That's the third wheel. Intimacy. You've got to have your marriage built on intimacy.
And when you say the word intimacy, you're talking about, physical touch, sex, and you're also talking about communication, okay? So when you're married, life, progresses, and a lot of times those things get put on the back burner, and that's when that out of balance relationship occurs. And so intimacy is a tremendous part of keeping your car, your Lexus, flowing and going.
I think men communicate to have sex, and women have sex to communicate.
What do you
That's
think?
a fact. I really believe that.
Don't tweet that.
No.
Don't tweet that.
Lisa, you know the word.
Now everybody's going to go, okay, I'm going to tweet that.
You know the word sex, and we hear it so much. Is it just me? But whenever you watch, especially television, it's like, this is a sexy
It's
outfit,
like
and I'm going to a sexy restaurant. This is a sexy cologne, sexy car, and sexy tires, and everything is sexy. I'm like, what is that, Sex, S-E-X, I love this. S stands for specially designed. It's designed by the God of the universe. It was God's idea. He thought it up. E, it should be enjoyed for life.
For life.
Yeah, for life. God doesn't say no when it comes to sex. He says wait until marriage. Have sex within the guidelines and guardrails of marriage. But what happens, Ed? When I'm like, whom, whom, and my spouse is,
Yeah, what happens?
yeah, what do you do then?
Tell us what happened.
Well, the scriptures say, stop depriving one another.
1 Corinthians 7:5.
Yeah, except if you both agree for a time of fasting and prayer. Well, here's what I believe the writer was going after. I believe that if you're not having sex regularly in marriage, I think it messes up your prayer life.
Yeah.
I think when you're not having sex, you start trying to pray. It's like, oh, I can't really pray because all I'm thinking about is I want sex. That's what I think it means. So,
well, listen,
sex is a part of discipleship.
It says, listen to this. Do not deprive each other except by mutual consent and for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. So you won't be distracted, you can pray. Then come together again so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. That's true. So if we're depriving our spouse, we're setting them up for failure. Failure before God and failure on the plane of marriage. That's huge.
And listen, it's not that we don't think about sex. The fact is, we don't think deeply enough about it. Sex was thought up by God, and even the Trinity is illustrated when a husband and wife make love in marriage. The Trinity is about what? Oneness. When we have sexual intercourse, there is oneness involved. So we're reflecting the personality and the nature and character of God.
And I'm going to throw a question out there for you.
All right.
How frequent should couples have sex?
I believe couples should have sex at least every 72 hours.
And why do you say that?
And I'm not kidding. That's not a joke. Some of the women are like, wow, where are the exits? No. Or maybe the men are saying that. I don't know. But I believe that because if you look at the way especially men are wired, if husbands do not have that release about every 72 hours, sexual stimuli can sometimes become overbearing. It's like,
And actually, Dr. Menrith Meyer, was it Dr. Menrith?
Yes.
From, he practiced psychology and psychiatry in Dallas for a while. He did a study, and I mean, that's like a proven statistical data study.
I mean, it's not in the Bible.
No, it doesn't.
Every 72 hours.
But
I'm just saying that she asked me that question.
And then I was thinking about the Garden of Eden, because sex was created before the fall of man. It was pre-sin. And so Adam and Eve lived in a pleasurable place. And so their hearts were mutual as far as fulfilling one another. And so probably it was a daily thing. I'm just saying. So it's, thank you for the amens, gentlemen.
Amen.
But women, we have to think. I mean, Ed and I, we have challenged our church at one point to have a 7-day sex challenge,
yes.
have sex for 7 days, married couples.
And we're writing a book on that. It'll be out. Sheila, this book will be out next Valentine's. It's called The Sexperiment.
Okay, but anyway, we did.
We're trying to promote
and one
the
of the
book
things
already,
that you'll
see,
find
right.
is because intimacy and communication do go hand in hand, that when this challenge was presented to our church, for example, we found that couples had to communicate because there were some real blockades of understanding between husbands and wives about the value of sex in their relationship. There were some misunderstandings. There was baggage from the past that people had to deal with, many had to deal with. And so it caused a lot of talk and communication between spouses. So they're inseparably linked, and communication is a huge thing in marriage.
Yeah, because Lisa, what happens outside the bedroom affects what happens inside the bedroom. What happens inside the bedroom affects what happens outside the bedroom.
And that Ephesians 4:32
Yeah.
verse that we just shared a moment ago, the first part of that says, be kind and tenderhearted. With our words and our communication, we should be kind and tenderhearted. And so often we get into this routine, we take for granted the person that we are in covenant with, and we forget how important our words are, our words of affirmation to our spouse, our words of encouragement, our words of promise and commitment. I think about a time that Ed had actually been speaking, and he got in way late in the night, like at 1:30 in the morning, and I had been asleep for several hours. And we had this little dog that we rescued from off the streets, and this little dog slept in our bed, you know. And his name is Level, because he went to a whole nother level when he came to live with us. So little Level loves Ed, just loves Ed. And so Level was in the bed, I'm asleep, Ed comes in and I hear him and I just kind of go, "Hi, honey, how did it go?" "It was good, it's good. I love you." And then that was it for me. Ed was, you know, getting ready for bed, whatever. So Ed gets in the bed and I hear him, you know, pulling the covers back, getting in the bed. Level shot out from under those covers, licking Ed all over the face, you know, just giving him all sorts of love, like amazing. And Ed's like, wow. He got a lot more from the dog than he got from me. I have to tell you. So communication is huge.
But the last wheel, and this is a monster, Lisa. The last wheel over here is the creativity wheel. And romance and creativity are the same. People say, "I want to be romantic. I wish you were more romantic." What they're saying is creativity.
Most of our marriages need a huge injection of creativity. Especially the longer you've been married,
That's right.
The more you do things the same way, the more you go to the same places for your date, you eat at the same restaurant, and you really basically order the same thing at that restaurant. And now when you get really old, your husband looks at you and says, "I'll just have what she's having." I mean, you just do the same thing.
That's right.
And so we need this infusion, this injection of creativity. Creativity is what keeps change happening in your relationship.
What you use to get her is what you use to keep her.
Yeah, I mean, you know, those dating, you do special picnics and you
Yes.
go to these new places and, oh, there's a play in town, we'll go there, and all these different things. And for some reason, once we say "I do," we say "I won't" to all those creative things. And so we need this infusion of creativity.
And we'll hang our romance jersey from the ceiling, from the rafters, and we'll go like, "Yeah, I used to use that jersey back in the day. Yeah, I was the man. I knew how to dress back then, and I knew how to look good. I knew how to call my girl up, and now I'm married. I got my woman, so, you know, it's going to be all right."
Now, how many are in... How many of you here have preschool age children? Raise your hand.
Preschool age children.
Preschool age children, elementary age children. Yeah, there's
Okay,
some.
yeah.
Okay, a word to you. It is so hard to leave your children with
Because
a
you know what, Lisa? The little kids are sitting in the back seat checking mom and dad out as you're, they are looking to see, wow, how do they communicate? Wow, how do they reconcile? Wow, are they creative? Whoa, how about commitment? They're looking through all this stuff and watching, because 24/7, you're talking about rolling on 24s, 24/7, we're on stage.
Yeah.
And they're watching.
They're watching. So it is so huge for you to pay for a sitter, arrange for a co-op, do what you need to do to go out, because if you don't pay now, you're going to pay later. You're going to pay for it in the breakup of your relationship.
That's right.
I'm telling you, it's so important that you keep that marriage as the center thing. It is the big deal. It's God, husband and wife, then the children. The children are not driving the car. They're not in the front seat. They're in the back seat. And so,
And a lot of parents try to put them in the front seat and say, "Oh, you drive. We'll build our entire family around you. You show us where to go, Junior." And he's 5 years old. He's made for the back seat. not the driver's seat.
And the best place for our children to learn how to date, how to select a spouse, and how to thrive in marriage is by observing moms and dads who have a great marriage, a marriage that reflects the covenant that God has with his people. That's it.
That's it. Thank you, Lisa.